Part 113. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1124. The starry sky in the universe is extremely vast. Downward arrow novel. UN degrees Fahrenheit. No one knows how big the universe is, and not even extremely advanced alien civilizations can tell this answer. In this vast universe, although there are many powerful individuals who are powerful individually, when viewed in the entire universe, these powerful people are nothing more than ants that are larger than ordinary creatures. But such a strong person can decide the life or death of billions of other living beings. That giant mosquito is coming, black hole tactics, hurry up. What? The black hole isn't charged and ready yet. Bastard. Boom. On a certain planet, the huge giant mosquito body transformed into the invincible god of war. After the fierce attack, the resistance on this planet no longer made any sound. It was a good fight. The war ended and the giant mosquito flew out of the star. This is already a month after Jiayan arrived in the new war zone. In the past month, Jiayan has experienced a change in the enemy's tactics, completely using black holes as the main weapon to resist him. At the beginning, Jiayan didn't have many options at all, and every battle was a bit difficult. But after careful thinking, he finally discovered the shortcomings of this tactic. That is the preparation for a black hole, which cannot be done anytime and anywhere. Regardless of the fact that it is relatively simple for him to master black holes, his simplicity is entirely due to the fact that he is a space genius. As for the other party, it is not that easy to maintain the black hole. Every time before using the black hole, it must be charged, and then moving is not easy. In that case, he only needs to use his speed advantage to catch the enemy off guard every time. Under such circumstances, Jiayan became more and more elusive. Often the enemy and the friendly forces fighting in the war zone did not expect where he would appear, but Jiayan would appear in places that others could not expect. Under such tactics, the one-month war went from being relatively strenuous at first to the almost one-sided attitude later on. Often the appearance of giant mosquitoes represents huge losses to the enemy and also represents the recovery of a corner. This giant mosquito has completely grasped the disadvantages of our black hole tactics. It's so abominable. As one of the forces in the biochemical star field, the invaders certainly understand that the black hole tactic also has disadvantages. The biggest disadvantage is that the reaction speed is slow and it can only be used for positional warfare. They originally thought that the giant mosquito would not be able to discover this disadvantage so easily, but they did not expect that Jiayan would discover this disadvantage just after several black hole battles with them. This giant mosquito, like Jiayan, can use black holes in subspace. It is not surprising to think of the disadvantages of black hole warfare. Now it is us who need to worry about his black holes. During this period of war, the war capabilities displayed by Giant Mosquito were not only powerful, but the two black holes he controlled also began to show their strengths. Previously, Jiayan was worried about the other party's ability to affect the operation of the black holes, but he tried several times. After several times, he found that the other party had no way to affect the black hole where they had not buried the controller, and now he became unscrupulous. The two black holes were hidden in the subspace and controlled by space stones. The terrifying combat effect they displayed was almost eye-opening to the biochemical starfield invaders who started playing with black holes. Gravity interference laser weapons can directly set off battleship routes, and even devour living creatures, and can be used in various ways. After playing with black holes for so many years, they realized that artificial black holes can actually be played like this. It can be said that although Jiayan's black hole fighting method was learned from the biochemical starfield, it is already better than his previous skills. After destroying another enemy-controlled planet, Jiayan didn't have much joy on his face. Because in the past month, He had not seen even a single native creature within Orion's arms on the enemy planets he had destroyed. In other words, the original residents of these planets were completely slaughtered by the other side. This made the killing intent in Jia Yan's eyes even more obvious. He thought of the people who had helped him when he was in his base camp behind enemy lines. They were so deep behind enemy lines, and they must be in dire straits now. Alas, this is a war of genocide. Some people were still able to be saved in that war zone on Earth because the enemy had just captured that area, but the next place has been under the control of the enemy for a long time. The Orion arm is ordinary. Even if the creatures are not killed by the enemy, they are certainly exterminated by their environmental machines. Jia Yan knew that the possibility of seeing native creatures next was not high. Of course, the starry sky is too vast. In fact, before each planet is captured by the enemy, a large part of the ordinary people have fled outside the starry sky. It is impossible for the enemy to send large forces to chase them, and it is impossible to catch them all. But all in all, the aboriginal people in this war zone were definitely in a state of emptiness and suffered heavy casualties. Jia Yan entered the superfast ship. Behind him, the indigenous people will soon get the news and return to the planet. At the same time, people from the temporary alliance in the war zone will come to lead the temporary government for management and recovery. It was extremely difficult to restore civilization to such a planet, even more difficult than the Earth and the Great Empire, but it was finally recovered. Fortunately, in this war zone, most of the enemies have begun to slowly gather and focus on defending some fortresses. This also saves me the trouble of moving around to fight. Jia Yan looked at the intelligence and found that there were a total of 19 original civilizations in this war zone, 5 of which had vast territories. Within these 19 civilizations, the enemy had completely shrunk in the occupied areas, forming approximately 37 large defense lines were established. These 37 defensive positions are a collection of resources collected frantically. Each has extremely terrifying traps and warships. Even the black holes assembled in each of them are larger than the last battle of the last war zone clearing battle. These 37 positions are like pieces of hard bone. It's too difficult for me to eat. When Jia Yan saw the description on the intelligence, he smiled bitterly. What's more, he looked at these 37 positions, all of them were on guard to help each other. Jia Yan couldn't attack one position in one go, but the positions next to him could catch up. Come support. Although I can also take advantage of this to encircle the point and provide reinforcements, I am only one person after all. It is very difficult to follow the plan. Jia Yan shook his head and entered the super-fast ship shuttle space. Thanks to his super-fast ship speed, he has destroyed a defensive position in this month that has not yet been fully set up. But even if it is difficult to chew, I will bite it. The next Orion arm needs not war, but recovery, especially the Earth. The newly acquired status needs a stable environment to transform the benefits into strength. Under such circumstances, the war must end soon. Jia Yan measured his own strength. Recently, he devoured the power in those huge rocks and digested a lot, which further increased his strength. The ultra-fast ship flew thunderously within the gravitational wave system. A flash of light trailed behind the super-fast ship, like a bolide, extremely brilliant. Soon, a defensive war began. This is a war between one person and billions. The giant Mosquito's body is in the interstellar space, constantly entering and exiting the subspace, and its panic force is like the punishment of the gods, constantly hitting the resistance army fortress. This battle was a tumultuous one, with ups and downs. Even when the enemy exploded 7 black holes in a row, trying to kill the giant Mosquito together, even Jia Yan, who had greatly improved in strength, actually suffered some injuries. Fortunately, Jia Yan ended the war before reinforcements were sent from another position a light year away. After wiping out all the oncoming reinforcements, Jia Yan disappeared. He hid in a place where the meteorite was and healed his injuries. With the artifact-like superfast ship in hand, the distance he could avoid was completely unimaginable. The position rushing to help thought it would be their turn next, but in the end, they were extremely nervous and invited the coalition fleets from several surrounding positions to come. But Jia Yan disappeared without a trace and came to another position 10 light-years away. No one could have imagined that he would arrive 10 light-years away in less than a month, so the outcome of this battle was doomed. Another position is destroyed. The entire enemy camp was in complete uproar. This giant mosquito was able to break through our two major fronts even when we used the defensive formation and even activated the black hole tactic at full strength. This completely shows that the general strength of our forces cannot resist him. Yes, his strength seems to be at a lower level, but it is definitely hidden. I seriously doubt that he has reached the peak of the semi-star level. Within our power, maybe only the Lord, and the two only a deputy at the same peak level can fight against him. What should we do? Our power lord and deputy lord have not come over. In the place where Yuanxa has no defense line, the huge barrier still exists, but dozens of holes appear at the bottom and troops and weapons are constantly entering through the holes. But under such circumstances, the interstellar battle fortress that appeared here still felt gloomy and miserable. The emergence of the giant mosquito and the terrifying strength he displayed made everyone in the headquarters of the invading forces feel sleepless. The defeat in the Earth's war zone forced the invaders to use even the black hole tactic. However, this tactic that consumed a lot of resources was still broken through by giant mosquitoes. This caused a group of commanding battle creatures to almost I felt suffocating pressure. He is as powerful as he is. The talent in subspace is too terrifying. We have not dealt with existences of space talent before, but no one can escape like him. Even a foreign black hole with an explosion power that reaches a depth of 6 degrees in subspace cannot explode. Damn him, he is a monster. Well, now I hope the lords can come up with a good method, otherwise I think this Orion arm will one day be mostly taken back by the giant mosquito. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1125. What you said is too destructive to your own prestige and boost the ambition of others. With his strength, I admit that it is possible for him to regain most of the Orion arm's land, but it is completely impossible for him to counterattack us. We have an interstellar battle fort here, as well as more advanced war weapons. Even if he comes here, he will die. I wish he was so stupid, so that we don't have to rely on the help of the lords. A group of powerful creatures didn't have many plans for Jia Yan. They just hoped that the front line could hold out as long as possible, so that their forces could send strong men over to kill the giant mosquito with one hand. Haha, let me tell you some good news. Our Lord, a few days ago, has been rewarded with pseudo-stones for donating essence and blood to Senior Huoku. Therefore, he attaches more importance to the Orion arm and expressed that he would use the pseudo-stones to be promoted to after reaching pseudo-stellar level. He will come to help in person. Are you relieved now? What, the Lord came here in person, or after promotion? That's great. A pseudo-star level has reached less than half of the power of an ordinary star level. No matter how powerful the giant mosquito is, it will still be killed by the Lord with one move. After the war broke out for a period of time, Jia Yan was surprised to find that the defensive force he faced was even more shrinking. They didn't even go out, relying entirely on the resources they had grabbed before, and seemed to be sticking to the war zones they had grabbed. Jia Yan tried to attack once, but the result made him feel a little uncomfortable. Because the completely shrunken defensive line was like an iron barrel, he succeeded in the strong attack, but he was injured again. Are these guys stalling for time? The more the opponent behaves like this, the more anxious Jia Yan becomes, because he understands very well that when an enemy who has always shown a strong desire to attack suddenly changes his temper, the only possibility is not that they took the wrong medicine at all, but that they are planning something. No matter what he was planning, it was not what Jia Yan wanted to see, so he attacked more intensely at this time. Regardless of the injury, the advantage of the evolved beast is that it recovers very quickly. 37 defenses were occupied by Jia Yan one by one. When he uses all his strength and his body becomes stronger day by day due to devouring boulders, the enemy cannot resist no matter how strong their defense is. But time was completely delayed. This war zone lasted 2.5 years. 2.5 years later, somewhere behind the solar system, suddenly, a roaring sound resounded. In space, a bizarre crack appeared, and then the crack completely opened. From behind the crack, a brand new light aircraft flew out. This new body is really good. Looking at the familiar space scenery around him, a creature with the appearance of an ordinary earthly man flew out of the aircraft. If anyone else saw this man at this time, they would definitely be shocked. Because he is the former top master on Earth who has disappeared for several years, Jia Yan. Many people originally thought he was dead, but after a few years, he actually appeared in the solar system again. In fact, that's right. The clone from back then has died, but to Jia Yan, the clone is just a consumable. As early as the first time the clone died a few years ago, he asked Queen Taia to make another one. Delivered in Avatar. It took several years for the other party to do this. Although the efficiency was not high, it was good that what we were hoping for, the stars and the moon, was finally here. At this time, Jia Yan's real body was still in another war zone that had just been recovered, and his mind turned to his clone, which could be regarded as relaxing a little. Please stop the aircraft ahead. We are from the Earth Civilization Patrol. Your ship has not been certified by our Earth civilization. We suspect that you have a tendency to stow away. Please cooperate with our investigation. Not long after Jia Yan's clone got off the aircraft, 3 warships flew not far behind him and surrounded him in a circle. Well, this person looks like he's been seen somewhere before. Hey, I seem to have seen it before. No, isn't he the appearance of Lord Jia Yan? How could it be? Isn't the Lord dead? When they completely surrounded Jia Yan's clone flying in the vacuum of space, the Earthlings on the 3 battleships discovered that the clone's appearance was exactly the same as that of Jia Yan, who was rumored to be dead. This shock can be described as extremely shocking. You must know that even if the reputation of the giant mosquito assassin on the Earth has reached a certain peak, it is still inferior to the previous Jia Yan. After all, one is alien, the other is completely earthly. If Jia Yan is really alive, it will definitely surprise the entire Earth. Haha, I'm not smuggling. Please investigate. I have an Earth identity. My name is Jia Yan. Jia Yan unleashed his brainwave power and spoke to the Earthlings on the 3 battleships with a faint smile. Boom. At this moment, the minds of the crew members in the 3 battleships all roared. Although they have doubts, they mostly believe that their judgment is wrong. There are many people similar to Jia Yan on the Earth, but when the other party says it himself, it is different. Difficult, is it really Mr. Jia Yan? Let me investigate. A soldier, almost trembling, opened the identification program on the patrol ship. Sure enough, Lord Jia Yan is back. After a while, an extremely horrified voice came from inside the battleship. Jia Yan watched the other party's movements with a smile, and then waited for the reaction. Almost instantly, news about his return spread back to Earth. Of course, the Earth is also shaken. But this time Jia Yan directly suggested that there would be no need to hold a welcome ceremony. He has long been tired of similar things. More than 4 years have passed. Little Kikai is now a 21-year-old girl, right? Even the youngest Ruruo is already a teenager. Jia Yan returned to the new space capsule sent to him by Taia Kingdom, and then rushed towards the Earth in a hurry. After fighting abroad for a long time, he would miss his family. Now that his avatar had just returned, he used it to return to Earth for a visit. But what Jia Yan didn't expect was that he saw Jia Qi before he reached the earth. The little girl back then has now grown into an extremely beautiful and moving girl, and she is wearing a military uniform with a well-tailored cut, which directly reflects her youthful and slim figure. Jia Yan met Jia Qi on his way back to the stars. It turns out that she has finished her studies and became the captain of an Earth battleship. "Uncle, you are finally back. Kikai misses you so much." Jia Qi did not pounce directly this time, but she was also extremely surprised when she looked at Jia Yan in the battleship reception room. "Haha, I'm back. I won't leave this time." Jia Yan looked at Jia Qi. This little girl had watched her grow up since she was a child. She is now an adult. Judging from her appearance, she is also a good captain. "You have also reached the peak of the heaven level. Come, uncle will give you a fortune." Jia Yan saw that Jia Qi had reached the peak of the heaven level. However, if she did not have a great opportunity, with her earthly talent, if she wanted to break through, she might not be able to break through. It's very difficult, and it will take at least 10 years. But now, Jia Yan's vision is no longer that of an ordinary strong creature. He waved to Jia Qi, then pressed his palm on her forehead, and the avatar's brainwave power moved slightly. His new clone is even more powerful than the previous one, firmly standing at the level of the Venerable. It is estimated that Taiya Kingdom has also suffered from construction resources. When this energy was used, Jia Qi's watery eyes suddenly widened, and then her peak level strength, which had been stuck for a while, began to waver. She seemed to hear the cracking sound of the stubborn wall in her mind, and this cracking could not hurt her at all. Everything was under the control of the uncle in front of her. Finally, after this breakthrough lasted for 2 hours, Jia Qi felt a new power derived from her body. This power was so terrifying that she even suspected that she could now reach Ling like other starry sky level people. Emptiness has passed through the vacuum of the universe. Okay, Jia Yan retracted his palm. Because of the improvement in the clone's strength, he did all this without any difficulty. "Thank you, uncle," Jia Qi almost cried with joy. She to find out that she had been stuck at the peak of the heaven level for a year. She even heard some other civilized people say that as a human on Earth, it is not easy to break through the talent. She had originally given up on making a quick breakthrough, but the moment she saw her uncle again, she was helped to break through by him. How could this not surprise her? "Okay, uncle is just helping me casually. You are able to break through because you have enough background. Don't mention these. Come, let me see how you have achieved in battleships over the years." Jia Yan didn't want to take credit and changed the topic. So while the battleship was flying, Jia Yan listened to his grown-up niece chattering beside him about things that had happened over the past few years. During the conversation, he smiled and discovered that even though his niece had grown up, her temper was still very similar to that of her childhood. Through her words, Jia Yan understood that the Earth's development seemed to have exploded in recent years, especially the large number of alien immigrants, which had brought improvements to all aspects of the Earth. War has always been the best way to develop, and because of the appearance of Jia Yan, the Earth's status, whether avatar or real body, has been pushed higher and higher. Therefore, even if the Earth civilization is still not high, it still attracts a large number of people. Investment and immigration. Moreover, the surrounding environment is also extremely poor. The recovered civilizations are all riddled with holes, and there are even huge problems with public security. This is a trend that has led to many aliens residing in the Earth civilization. Well, the fact that Earth civilization has reached this point is considered to have fully risen. Even the speed of its rise is beyond my expectations. When he learned that the subspace system dominated by aliens had begun to develop on the Earth, Jia Yan understood that the current Earth had embarked on the path of real development. As long as it was not destroyed by war, it would definitely take less than a few hundred years to surpass Great Empire. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1126. Everything on the earth has changed. Not to mention technology, the mental outlook of people on earth is completely different from what Jia Yan is familiar with. In his impression, the people on earth were still under the crisis of metal monsters, ignorant and could only passively endure it. But now when I look back, it's completely different. The people on earth haven't received much help from his true form in these years, and they have honed their diplomatic skills. And because of the prosperity of the coming countries, everyone is extremely confident. Every family has a speed car, and almost every family practices brainwave power. Although in Jia Yan's opinion, there are only a few who have broken through to the heaven level, this tendency is good. When all soft and hard powers are further improved, then the Earth civilization will reach at least a medium level of civilization. With prestige and popularity, it will no longer be a ridiculed primary civilization, but a truly powerful civilization that can have influence in all aspects. Then uncle, I will send you here. My task is to continue to familiarize myself with the Pikeway tactics. Now that I have reached the starry sky level, I feel that I can exert most of the power of the Pikeway tactics. Jia Qi sent Jia Yan to the outside of the earth, shouted urgently, and then drove Jia Yan out of the battleship. Watching the battleship leave quickly, Jia Yanku shook his head. He stood in the vacuum and felt the lively scene on the ground, especially the large number of aliens of various races, which made him pay more attention, and then he sighed. The development of the earth is good, but it seems to be different from the earth in his memory. Jia Yan has an inexplicable complex emotion. He calmed down and then descended towards the surface of the earth. The earth's defense system, which had been notified long ago, was not activated, and there was no greeting. Jia Yan quietly returned to the Jia family's land. Fortunately, not much has changed here from before. Xiao Yan, you are back. Sitting in the house, Jia's mother, holding needle and thread in her hand, said hello to Jia Yan while pricking. She was smiling, and although she tried her best to hide it, Jia Yan could still see a trace of tears in her eyes. Jia's father also returned home. He seemed to be interested in some sports. He was wearing sportswear. He obviously rushed back after hearing the news. Jia Lin is not at home, she must be busy with business. Rong and Ruruo have both gone to school and will be back in a few hours. As for you, your wife, she is in her own room. After talking to my parents, everything didn't feel like years had passed, nor did it feel like a rebirth after separation, it just felt like a normal family chat. After talking, Jia Yan stood up and said goodbye. Arriving at the Satsuma niche house, Jia Yan hesitated for a moment, then knocked on the door. The door opened silently. The woman, whose appearance was so perfect that it was almost fake, was sitting on the sofa in the room. There was a wine glass in front of her, as if she had been waiting for a long time. Assassin, I've been waiting for you for a long time, she said with a smile. When she saw Jia Yan's true form, she understood everything. She also understood that Jia Yan in front of her was just a clone. Jia Yan smiled, not caring about the past. Most of the time, he was lonely. He always wanted the feeling of home, but every time he returned to Earth, he always felt a little disappointed. Returning this time, Jia Yan didn't want to struggle too much and didn't resist too much, so he knocked on the door of Satsuma's niche. Sitting opposite the Satsuma niche, the two drank red wine, and then chatted about domestic topics and cultivation issues. Satsuma is getting closer and closer to the character of an earthling, and it no longer feels as stiff as before. Jia Yan doesn't know if this is because she has integrated into her earthling identity, or if she has learned it deliberately, or a combination of both. Anyway, Jia Yan can feeling that this temperament came from her heart. Jia Yan felt very comfortable chatting with her this time. Are you going out this time? What I'm talking about is, this body of yours. Satsumakan hesitated for a while, and then asked pointedly. I won't go out. This body will stay on Earth from now on. Jia Yan shook his head. Really? Then I have a chance. Satsuma's red lips raised slightly. Jia Yan looked at her and smiled the same way. When giving opportunities to others, who is to say that you are not giving yourself opportunities at the same time? Identity, race, etc., Jia Yan figured it out. His own race and identity were too messy, so why did he ask others to do so much? But he is a man with no love experience, so it is not easy for Satsuma to pursue him. The relationship between the two is as light as water, but they are slowly getting closer. On this day, Jia Yan has been immersed in the life of his new avatar, and the giant mosquito's body is filled with a sense of happiness. But the clone is just a clone after all, and matters regarding the real body are still important. Senior Mosquito Ancestor, thank you for your rescue. Opening a letter of thanks from a certain recovered civilization in the superfast ship, Jia Yan forced himself to recover from the emotions of the clone. Okay, another war zone has been recovered, and next is another war zone close to the Great Empire. Jia Yan calculated the next journey route in his mind, and then analyzed all aspects of intelligence to determine the strategic route for the next period of time. It has to be said that this several-year battle has brought Jia Yan a lot of gains. It's not just as simple as regaining the lost ground, and then he is admired by the creatures in Orion's arms. During this period, he had more systematic improvements in his strategic abilities, fleet operations, and even special tactics, especially in the face of powerful weapons such as black holes. A lot of coping skills. To be honest, before Jia Yan came to Orion Arm, he never thought that this would be such a long war. It is foreseeable that he believes that he has only regained so much lost ground, and it will take at least 10 more years to completely help the Orion Arm return to its original state. This made Jia Yan a little frustrated. It was only more than 20 years since he was reborn. It was a difficult process for him to accept that he had to waste more than 10 years in this war. But you have to accept it if you don't want to. After all, the Orion's arms are too big. It will take a lot of time to even walk around completely, and it won't be fast at all. But something extremely unexpected happened to Jia Yan. When Jia Yan came to the next war zone he wanted to attack, he suddenly saw a scene in front of him that shocked him. In this war zone, there are densely packed and almost endless battleships and interstellar defense facilities. These warships and defense facilities were pushed almost to the edge of the war zone, and they looked like they were about to launch an all-out counterattack. As soon as Jia Yan's body appeared in the starry sky, the huge fleet over there also moved at the same time. They originally spread out for half a light year, but after confirming Jia Yan's figure, one fleet after another gathered. Jia Yan was silent for a moment, and then his eyes shone brightly. Even though the scene in front of him was extremely strange, the previous victories made him not too timid, but stayed where he was, wanting to watch. See what tricks the other party is playing. With so many warships and defense facilities, they must have used all the war resources from the surrounding war zones. Do they want to fight a final battle with me here? The confusion in Jia Yan's eyes was extremely obvious. To know his strength and advantages, the opponent should know it best after fighting with him for so long. Quantity doesn't mean much to Jia Yan, who has subspace talent. Moreover, the opponent did not seem to have been preparing for a long time to gather here, so there were very few explosion black holes. Such a front, despite having more than 100,000 warships, could actually cause harm to him, which might not even be the same as in a war zone. None of the turtle defensive positions compare. Jia Yan couldn't understand the opponent's intention, but he was not frightened. Instead, his compound eyes were shining brightly as he looked at the tens of millions of enemy troops. When Jia Yan appeared, it seemed that there was a slight disturbance in the opponent's position. After all, the giant Mosquito was already famous among the enemy. Not long after, a creature that was 1 kilometer in size slowly flew out from the group of battleships. At this moment, Jia Yan's heart suddenly shook, and at the same time, an extremely dangerous feeling filled his heart. Who is this creature? He felt that the flying behemoth had an energy fluctuation that made his heart palpitate. It was not only because of the huge size of the opponent, but also because of the power of his brain waves, which was separated by tens of millions. Kilometers already gave him the dangerous feeling of death. Hung, star. Jia Yan's heart kept beating. At this moment, he almost had the urge to turn around and run away. You must know that although he is confident, he has even had the idea of using a black hole to reach out to a star class before, but the idea is an idea. In fact, when he encounters a star class, he knows that he will never be his opponent. Star level is no longer comparable to half-star level in the life level. There have been rumors in the genius battlefield that several geniuses in the genius battlefield can defeat a star level together, but there are preconditions for that. The stellar class entered the battlefield of geniuses and fought against the geniuses while the heaven and earth suppressed their strength. If placed in the normal outside world, even a group of top geniuses in the genius battlefield would be unlikely to defeat the weakest star. No matter how arrogant Jia Yan is, he doesn't think he can fight head-on with a star. No. This guy's strength seems a bit weird. Just before Jia Yan was about to put his idea of escaping into action, he suddenly felt something strange in the figure of the other party who was getting closer and closer. This monster is huge, reaching a height of more than 1 kilometer, and the fluctuations emanating from his body are also extremely terrifying. From a distance, it even gives Jia Yan the illusion of a star. But after actually feeling it carefully, Jia Yan was shocked to realize that the opponent's strength seemed to be vaguely separated from the real star level. It looks like a star, but it's not a star. Could it be? Jia Yan was startled, and then he thought of a term. Pseudostellar. He was surprised, and the figure that originally wanted to escape actually stopped. I recommend a new book, My Hair is a Magic Weapon. Interested book friends can search for it. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1127. The theory of pseudo-star level is just a rumor in the genius battlefield. Everyone in the genius battlefield is a genius. Even the most ordinary geniuses all want to become a star normally and have no intention of taking any tricks. But pseudo-star level is almost popular in the outside world. You must know that in the real ordinary star field, the half-star level with poor talent accounts for the vast majority. For them, being able to advance to the star level, even if it is just pseudo-stellar level, that is also extremely exciting. As for the pseudo-stellar level, as the name suggests, it is a powerful creature that has entered the star but has not fully entered. This kind of creature usually succeeds in promotion through unique methods, but the methods they use are also evil and crooked. Their strength is much lower than that of a real star. Pseudo-star level? It is said that the more powerful pseudo-star level can almost reach half the strength of the weakest star level. I think that although this creature has also advanced to the pseudo-star level, its strength is normal at best. 1/3, or even only about 1/4 of the stellar level. Jia Yan looked at the creatures flying from the opposite side with brilliant eyes. If the opponent were a star, Jia Yan would not hesitate to turn around and run away. In front of the star, he knew that he had no room for a backhand. But if the other party is only a pseudo-star level? There was an inexplicable light in his eyes. I can't say, today is the moment for me to test my latest strength. Jia Yanfu's eyes flashed fiercely, as if he was about to explode and hurt someone at the next moment. For Jia Yan, he has seen better ones at the stellar level. He can't afford to offend the real stellar ones, but there is absolutely no situation where he will be unable to escape when he meets the opponent. What's more, what we are facing now is just a pseudo-star that is suspected to be only a quarter of the strength of the weakest normal star. The pseudo-stellar creature that flew far away, after seeing Jia Yan detecting him from a distance, he originally thought that Jia Yan, the giant mosquito, would turn around and run away, but he did not expect that as he became more and more as he got closer, the giant mosquito showed no sign of fear and stayed where it was. Could it be that the pressure I'm releasing now is so terrifying that he doesn't even dare to think about escaping? He thought for a moment, then smiled confidently. This creature is the Lord creature that is currently attacking the Orion armed forces. The so-called Lord creature means the strongest leader. When he arrived less than 10 kilometers away from Jia Yan, the pressure released from him was even more terrifying, but the Lord creature became weird. Because after getting close, he also felt that Jia Yan's attitude towards him was not one of fear, but an extremely strong fighting spirit. Fighting spirit? A star for me? He was almost stunned. Little guy, my name is Baitan, and I am the leader of the Fihang force. His expression darkened. Anyone who had just been promoted and gained unprecedented power would not feel good about being despised by a mere junior level. He said calmly, "You ruined my army's good deeds, you are guilty." Fihang forces, Baitan. Jia Yan chewed on these two names. After fighting with the opponent for so long, this was the first time he knew the name of the opponent's force. And this Baitan is the leader of the opposing force? Jia Yan looked at the opponent's sense of strength and finally determined that Baitan had just been promoted not long ago. The information he had received before was that there was no creature in the opponent's force that existed more than half a star. Now that a pseudo-star suddenly appeared, there must be some chance. Jia Yan never thought that Baitan's promotion was related to the great empire. Lord Baitan. Jia Yan organized a conversation and replied to the other party without being humble or arrogant, "Your forces are attacking my Orion arm. As a creature in the Orion arm, I naturally have to resist vigorously. Instead of you blaming me now, it's too much. Oh, in this universe, the powerful have always swallowed up the weak. Your Orion arm is weaker than mine, so you should be swallowed up. You understand the laws of the universe, so you should admit that I am right." Jia Yan nodded. "This is true in most places in the universe, but as an Orion arm creature, I can't watch my hometown being annexed by noble forces and remain indifferent. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, I'm here in person, can you accept your fate?" Baitan said calmly. From his words, Jia Yan could hear a strong sense of confidence. After all, star level, even if it is only pseudo-star level, is a transition of life, and it is no longer comparable to half-star level. In his view, the Jia Yan in front of him was not just a second-level passer, he could even faintly detect that there was an aura of a venerable person hidden deep in the aura of this pass-level person. Although the aura was very light, he could determine that either the giant mosquito in front of him was wearing combat metal, or that he had just been promoted from the venerable level. In this case, no matter what the situation was, it would be different from his pseudo-star level. There are too many differences. I accept my fate. Jia Yan heard this and shook his head. How could it be so easy to ask him to accept his fate? Lord Baitan, since your words are not speculative, then you can use your proud pseudo-star strength to defeat me. It is impossible for me to surrender. Jia Yan said with more fighting intent in his eyes. You still want to struggle? Let me show you the true strength of the star class. The four words pseudo-star class in Jia Yan's words made Baitan feel uncomfortable, because it's like reminding him that he is not truly a star yet. He wants Jia Yan to understand that even if it is only a pseudo-star level, it is not something Jia Yan can fight against. Jia Yan looked at this kilometer of body, his expression slowly became serious. Although he wanted to test his own strength and kept provoking the pseudo-star in his words, Jia Yan did not think that the other party was weak. It could even be said that the pseudo-star was the most powerful enemy he had ever fought. Here, the most powerful one. The momentum of that huge creature surged like a flood in an instant. Waves of terrifying sounds poured out in all directions. Jia Yan was only a few kilometers away from the opponent. At this moment, he felt a level 10 typhoon blowing around him, and the vacuum was completely shattered by this momentum. But under this pressure, Jia Yan's eyes lit up. The more the other party behaves like this, the more different it is from the stellar level in his memory. Either the gap between his pseudo-star level strength and the real star level strength is still too big, or the opponent has just been promoted and has not yet had time to familiarize himself with how to use the new power. In any case, how to use his power, what's the difference between using brute force? Jia Yan is not afraid of opponents who use brute force. Die. Just when Jia Yan's eyes were full of excitement, the huge creature moved its body and pressed in the direction of Jia Yan. A few kilometers away, it's like teleporting, arriving in the blink of an eye. You must know that pseudo-star level, even if it contains the word pseudo, is definitely not ordinary. So fast, Jia Yan was slightly startled, and then took half a step back. The subspace behind his body tore open, and he was about to retreat into it. Want to escape? No way. Since the opponent came to kill Jia Yan in person, he naturally had a basic understanding of Jia Yan. Seeing that he wanted to use his subspace talent to escape into the subspace, he must stop him. The brainwave power was so panicked that it suppressed the entire starry sky. The subspace behind Jia Yan suddenly tightened, and the space that was torn apart actually closed tightly again. A flash of light flashed in Jia Yan's eyes, and then he did not enter the subspace. Instead, he brushed against the opponent's giant punch of several hundred meters and escaped upwards. Good hiding. Nobitan didn't expect Jia Yan to be able to dodge his blow, but as a being with a lot of combat experience, he didn't pause much and used another fist to sweep at him. The body of more than 300 meters was almost like a small fish under the opponent's fist, and it was extremely flexible to avoid two fist attacks in a row. The power of this attack is terrifying. If you get hit just once, you might be killed. Jia Yan felt the power of the attack that almost hit him several times, and his heart became even more solemn. However, during this attack, he felt that his confidence became stronger and stronger. This strength is indeed strong. It is obviously not a true star level. The several star level creatures I have seen have the ability to reach the sky and the earth that I can't imagine. Find him and others at Chiyuan. The star level is very different compared to the other. Jia Yan's eyes flashed, and then his front foot suddenly turned blue. After instantly increasing the hardness by several levels, he took advantage of the enemy's missed attack and stabbed the surface of the opponent's fist with one foot. There seemed to be a vibrating sound throughout the starry sky. An enemy warship approached from behind and wanted to fight Qiu Feng. Under the shock of the fight between the two sides, screams came from inside the ship. Hundreds of fleet soldiers actually lost their lives completely just from the shock. Now, no warship dared to approach anymore. That giant Mosquito can actually fight head-on with the Lord who has been promoted to the pseudo-star level. Impossible. The Lord definitely has the ability to reserve his strength. Almost every one of the warships following behind was extremely shocked. You must know that their Lord, as the leader of the entire Feihang force, is undoubtedly the number one in strength. Now he has become a pseudo-star, but he can't take down the giant Mosquito? You must know that for several commanders in their force, the original analysis was that Jia Yan's strength was at best on par with them, but now it seems that the intelligence is completely incorrect. However, they all guessed that the Lord definitely did not use all his strength. Sure enough, when Jia Yan and Nobitan fought for more than 10 moves, although Jia Yan also counterattacked, the feat with the blue defense could not completely pierce the surface of the opponent's skin. However, Jia Yan counterattacked several times, causing Bai Tan, who was a little embarrassed, finally roared. "Humph, I won't play with you anymore, let's see my true strength." He is a self-proclaimed star-level person, but he is fighting like this with a second level. Even if he can see that the other party is a being with extremely high talent level, he definitely should not fight with him. It's only a tie. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1128. He was tied with a sub-level, and if such shocking news spread, his face would be over. After Baitan yelled that he needed to show his true strength, the power surged in his body and he had to use all his strength. Are you finally serious? The dignified meaning in Jia Yan's eyes became more eye-catching. His previous counter-attack did not retain any strength, but after the attack, he was able to confirm that even if his attack could continue to increase its power a little, it would only break the opponent's skin at most, not even a threat. So in this battle, Jia Yan will definitely not win in the end. But I absolutely can't lose. At this time, Jia Yan's brainwave power suddenly connected two black holes not far away. At this time, Baitan also mobilized his strength, and his fist turned into a slap, and he whipped towards Jia Yan with a wider area. He finally figured it out. In terms of speed, Jia Yan did have a big advantage, but because Jia Yan had risen to the pseudo-stellar level, it was difficult to control his speed, which led to the embarrassing scene before. Now he uses palms instead of fists, which actually increases the attack area. Regardless of whether it is fists or palms, he believes that if he hits the so-called giant mosquito in front of him, he will definitely die. Absolute power can sometimes defeat everything. The increased power of the blow was just as Baitan expected. Even if Jia Yan escaped, he could not match his attack speed. If the subspace could not be torn apart, this blow would definitely hit. But just when he was about to slap away the giant mosquito in front of him, an extremely astonishing gravitational force acted on his palm. He was startled, and the power under his hand, which was not controlled accurately enough, was completely stunned. Taking advantage of this juncture, Jia Yan flew out of the place where the opponent slapped him, causing the slap to be empty again. Black hole? Giant mosquito, you are really interesting. Baitan smiled again when he saw what attracted him behind him. This smile was not a happy smile, but full of embarrassment and anger. Under the watchful eyes of countless subordinates behind him, he was unable to kill the little bug in front of him even with all his strength. This completely dealt a blow to his newly promoted prestige. This is a mere level, and you actually want to defy the heavens. As a newly promoted pseudo-stellar level, he almost had a brain hemorrhage. In the universe, the star level is a huge obstacle. Before today, I have never heard of a sub-level being able to transcend two major levels and fight with a stellar level. Even if this star level is just a pseudo-star level that he has just promoted, in his opinion, it is completely something that should not happen. Let alone the second level, even if the opponent is a top genius in the semi-star level, such a thing should not happen, let alone the second level. He stared, no longer caring about the consumption of power, and suddenly used 12% of his power. So what about man-made black holes? Let me defeat all methods with my strength. As a pseudo-star, he has just been promoted and has not yet mastered his own fighting methods, but his strength is still extremely impressive. At this time, he smashed it with all his strength in anger. The impact of the two artificial black holes behind him was reduced to the limit. Even if Jia Yan used all his strength to control the black hole, and the gravity would become stronger and weaker, the opponent's slap would still hit him head and face, leaving him with almost no possibility of escape. If you want to retreat into the subspace, the space in all directions cannot be torn apart due to the stability of the opponent's brainwave power. Is this a pseudo-stellar level of strength? Sure enough, it has a certain stellar power. Jia Yan looked at the huge palm that fell, and his expression was tangled for a while. He admitted that he still underestimated the other party. But it's too late to escape now, and there's no use regretting it. Then he became very angry. Resist with all your strength, The azure defense appears. At this moment, Jia Yan, whose strength had just surged, mobilized the blue defense with all his strength. What? Baitan was slightly frightened when he saw a strange blue color appear on the surface of the giant metal mosquito in front of him. But the attack has already reached the opponent, and no matter what, the blow will fall. The world seemed to suddenly stop for a moment. At the intersection between the two sides, a concussive shockwave was felt, as if the stars were exploding, impacting in all directions. Under this shock, several onlookers' warships, which were more than 1,000 kilometers away from behind, were shaken by the shockwave and collided together. The biological soldiers in the warship suffered heavy casualties. At this moment, all the enemy creatures in the starry sky were stunned. Just watching the battle, there were so many casualties. Is this the strength of a pseudo-stellar powerhouse? The opponent of this pseudo-stellar powerhouse is even more unbelievable. Because he only has one pass. It was really the second level. Even at this time, the giant mosquito did not erupt with a brainwave power level exceeding the second level. It took so much effort to get a pseudo-star level existence through just a few passes. But under this blow, he should have died. After all, it was just a second pass. All the Fihang forces soldiers breathed a long sigh of relief. You must know that they were only a little afraid of the giant mosquito before, but now seeing him fighting with their newly promoted lord, these creatures have felt a sense of joy in their hearts. The other parties, the strength is so terrifying, if the lord is not promoted. Maybe there is no strong person in the entire Fihang force who can fight him. Coming to this conclusion, almost all creatures were slightly shocked. Fortunately, this guy was already dead. If you were hit directly by an attack of that level, you would definitely be dead. Almost everyone didn't think Jia Yan could survive. But at this moment, at the center of the battle where a terrifying shockwave erupted, Baitan, who was under the spotlight of everyone, actually let out an extremely shocked roar. How could you not be dead? Baitan was shocked. He looked at the giant mosquito monster right in front of his palm, which was shot 300 kilometers away. At this time, Jia Yan's metal armor had completely transformed into azure color, with an extremely hard surface. Although part of the armor metal that was blocking the front had large cracks, it was still intact. Jia Yan's true form inside the battle armor smiled faintly. So what if you are a pseudo-star? I also just made a huge improvement in strength. Okay. The joy in Jia Yanfu's eyes could not be concealed. Jia Yan, who absorbed the energy of the boulder, was only preparing to swallow the diluted essence and blood next, but his strength was still greatly improved. It took him several years to almost completely digest that power. At this time, his strength was, of course, a big improvement. And among the manifestations of this great improvement in strength, the most outstanding thing is his azure defense. In the past, the blue defense had always been Jia Yan's cheating ability. At a certain level, it could even make a higher level existence reach an almost desperate level of defense. Later, when he was at the venerable level, because almost all the enemies he dealt with were 1 or even 2 levels higher than Jia Yan, the blue defense seemed not as effective as before. But in fact, the change of azure defense has not weakened it at all. Just because the previous enemies were much higher than Jia Yan's real level, the blue defense seemed to be weakened. But this time, Jia Yan's overall level caught up, and the almost loophole-like defense ability of azure defense was once again reflected. This block was able to block even a pseudo-star level 10-meter force. Although the opponent is just a newly promoted pseudo-star, and his strength may not reach half of the peak in the future, Jia Yan can definitely survive a full blow from the pseudo-star without even being seriously injured. Famous for a while. What on earth are you? Baitan was almost in a state of confusion. He looked at the big mosquito with even more striking colors in its compound eyes from a distance, and could not speak clearly. I'm very disappointed. How could Sir Baitan forget my race in an instant? I'm from the giant Mosquito clan. Sir, please remember clearly Jia Yan did not retreat, but slowly approached Baitan again. You, still dare to come here, believe me or not. When this creature that was far smaller than himself flew over, Baitan felt a sense of fear in his heart, and couldn't help but take a step back. A dignified pseudo-star level, actually backed away out of fear when a mere sub-level creature approached. If he told it, it would definitely make the surrounding star field extremely shocked. Believe it or not. My lord, we just had a bad fight. Let's fight again. The closer Jia Yan got, the more obvious the fighting spirit in his eyes became. It seemed that Jia Yan was extremely excited to find such an opponent who could make him fight fiercely. Baitan felt angry and wanted to rush forward again. No, the giant Mosquito's current defense is almost to a level that even I can't destroy. And because of the previous attacks, my newly promoted strength has begun to become unstable. If the energy runs out during the battle, wouldn't it be dangerous? The more Jia Yan rushed, the more rational Baitan became. The self-confidence that he had just been promoted to the pseudo-star level collapsed at this moment. After all, his mentality was still that of a half-star level peak existence. He was very sure that if he was still the original half-star level peak person, he might not be able to. It would be extremely dangerous to encounter this giant mosquito with incredible strength. The more he looked at the giant mosquito that was boiling with fighting spirit, the more frightened he became. After all, he had just been promoted and had no idea of his own strength and fighting endurance. At this time, fear arose. Come on, we've all been embarrassed anyway, let's forget this battle. When I stabilize my pseudo-star level strength and become twice as powerful as now, it will definitely be extremely easy to deal with this giant mosquito. Let's forget it today. Thinking of this, Baitan suddenly retreated under Jia Yan's advance. Jia Yan, today's battle is a draw for now. I don't want to take your life. We will fight again tomorrow, he shouted at Jia Yan in a stern tone. But this extremely heroic voice, coupled with the way he didn't dare to counter-attack Jia Yan, but retreated, it looked like escape. A pseudo-star level being, in front of a sub-level creature, did not dare to fight, turned around and ran away. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1129. Ha ha ha, the existence of pseudo-stars is nothing more than that. When Jia Yan's mocking voice sounded behind Baitan, the dignified pseudo-star staggered and almost hit the warship next to him. As a pseudo-star, Baitan, who claims to be a star, made a high-profile appearance this time, but ran away like a lost dog, which can be said to be the biggest mockery of himself. Jia Yan looked at the tens of thousands of enemy fleets and retreated slowly, retreating to the edge of the battle zone's defense line and shrinking back again, with no intention of pursuing them. Especially Nobitan, he took a deep breath after getting into the battleship group as if he was extremely embarrassed. If given the chance, why wouldn't he chase after him? He really can't chase now. It's so dangerous. If we continue to fight, I will definitely lose. Jia Yan smiled bitterly as he felt his own power. After a short period of offense and defense, his brainwave power, which he had just improved a lot, had almost bottomed out. Even his armor had some permanent cracks. The other party was probably promoted not long ago, and Jia Yan also felt it, otherwise he wouldn't have used such a terrifying power so hastily. In this battle, it seemed that the opponent had escaped, but Jia Yan never had the upper hand. In the end, he only blocked Baitan's full blow, which shocked the opponent and forced him to retreat. So even though Jia Yan knew that Baitan's strength must have dropped a lot, he didn't dare to chase him, because if he chased him, his energy would also be at the bottom. Jia Yan also retreated. Anyway, The opponent's army was not approaching directly, so forget it for now. I didn't expect that the Fihang forces would actually put a huge force here. It seems that because of Baitan's existence, they want to kill me here, and then attack the 2 battle zones I recovered with their troops. Maybe in the eyes of the other party, Baitan can definitely kill Jia Yan. The abacus was very good, but unexpectedly, at this most confident level, he was given a slap in the face. The army was blocked, but for Jia Yan, his advance was also blocked. The 2 sides confronted each other. Not long after Jia Yan arrived here, a wave of battles from major civilizations and empires followed in his footsteps. Hey, Mr. Giant Mosquito, you didn't attack. There's such a huge fleet over there. No wonder Lord Giant Mosquito can't break into it. It must be too strong. Among the battleships, many senior officials looked solemn. Then, without Jia Yan's orders, tens of thousands of coalition warships also formed a defensive formation in the starry sky on this side. Of course, they only regard themselves as being a face to Senior Giant Mosquito. If they really fight, it is not surprising that they collapse immediately. Of course, this situation, at least on the surface, looks like a regular cosmic war. The 2 sides have deployed large armies, separated by hundreds of millions of kilometers, and just assembled a line of defense to confront each other from a distance. Arriving at an unmanned meteorite not far from the army here, Jia Yan knelt down. The compound eyes flashed with brilliance. This Baitan is definitely trying to increase his strength quickly, and he will come to attack after a while. After all, he must think that what I had before was my full strength. Compared with when he was just promoted, he will be even stronger in a few months. I can't possibly improve so quickly. Jia Yan was very lucky that he met Baitan, who had just been promoted in this defense line. If he had waited a few more months, he would have fully established his pseudo-stellar level strength and mastered the pseudo-stellar level strength. After knowing how to use it, he will definitely not be able to defeat the opponent in another fight. But if I can't improve my strength, the script will go according to their ideas. Jia Yan was silent for a while. In fact, he has always had a way to improve, and he originally didn't want to use it during this war, but the enemy is pressing in front of him, and he can't fight without improving his strength, so there is no other way. Dilute the essence and blood, come out. Jia Yan took out a small crystal test tube bottle from a precise storage space inside the armor. This is the diluted blood essence that his previous clone spent his energy on getting from the Starlight Realm. Before devouring the energy of the boulder, this diluted essence and blood was almost a poison to Jia Yan, but now, he can feel that this diluted essence and blood is just suitable for him now. But I have just completely digested the previous boulder material, and I am directly promoted again. I don't know if it will have any impact on my body. Jia Yan shook his head. In short, when the matter was in front of him, he couldn't think too much about these trivial matters. He probed out the mouthparts of the giant mosquito, then opened the test tube. Under the careful control of the brainwave power, the liquid inside flew out of the vacuum. To be honest, this amount was almost difficult for him to wet his mouth, but Jia Yan was extremely dignified and put the liquid into his mouth. Just less than a second after the crystal liquid entered his mouth, Jia Yan's compound eyes suddenly trembled. The seemingly sparse diluted essence and blood, just after entering Jia Yan's mouth, exploded like an explosion. It was almost the most violent energy Jia Yan had ever encountered. Starting from the mouth, it exploded all the way. Enter the whole body. In less than 3 or 4 seconds, this terrifying power swept through his entire body. Jia Yan felt that his blood was boiling and his mind was restless. An extremely severe itching sensation spread throughout his body, and amidst this itching, there was also a faint roar of a beast that sounded in Jia Yan's heart. This is the will of Senior Tianji attached to the diluted essence and blood. You must know that every extremely powerful creature can retain its own will in the remaining tissues of its body. Jia Yan even read a book, which said that existences that are so powerful that they defy the heavens can have their own will because of one of their own actions. Organization, and death, and rebirth. Of course, death, and rebirth is just a rumor in the genius battlefield. At least Jia Yan has not seen any records of strong people doing this, and even books that record the possibility of death and rebirth also say this. The existence of this level is probably still in theory. Whether it can reach this level needs to be verified by future generations. Anyway, it was the first time that Jia Yan felt this kind of power of will. He was surprised at the moment, but the beast roar in his blood just kept roaring, and there was no more expression after that. He was swallowed by the condensation in Jia Yan's body. Slowly swallowing, and disappearing. "Thank you, Senior Tianji." Jia Yan said a slight thank you to Senior Tianji from the bottom of his heart. You must know that the entire Orion arm has been protected by Senior Tianji until now. Even if Jia Yan died in the battle, the brainwave power and will left by Senior Tianji will still protect the Orion arm for at least thousands of years. Jia Yan not only got a chance to be reborn through the senior, but also got a lot of benefits indirectly. This time, he directly swallowed his diluted version of blood essence. The relationship between the two parties is both a teacher and a friend, which can be regarded as a fate. The violent blood power soaring into the sky caused Jia Yan's whole body to suffer severe pain, and even most of his body was being destroyed and reorganized. Jia Yan originally thought that his body had undergone several mutations and countless useless tissues had perished, but now it seems that his body is still far behind the bodies of his predecessors. With the help of this blood essence and blood, more useless organizations that were hidden deeper were uncovered again and then killed one by one. This process is extremely painful and terrifying. Presumably many powerful men from great empires who swallowed blood essence died at this step. But Jia Yan was not in great danger. First of all, his body is so powerful that it can swallow the diluted version of blood essence. More importantly, as an evolved beast, he is already adapted to this process of destruction and reorganization. Even compared to Jia Yan's previous mutations, this reorganization is not a major crisis. After enduring the initial bloodline volcano eruption, the next step is to slowly enjoy the process. Okay, this time it's not a mutation, but it's better than a mutation. I'm looking forward to how strong I will be after I completely absorb this diluted version of blood essence. Jia Yan's eyes shone brightly, and on the surface of his crouching body, there was actually a stream of light condensate surging out. This situation, which only occurs in formal mutations, was revealed at this moment. It can be seen that this improvement, even if there is no the degree of mutation that reaches a life transition, cannot be underestimated. On this side, Jia Yan slowly entered the process of sucking the diluted version of blood essence, while on the other side, in the Fihang Force fleet confronting the Orion Arm fleet, Baitan fell into an extremely furious state. You all said that this giant mosquito is not something to be afraid of. What about now? This lord can't even take him down personally. This is what you said is not something to be afraid of. Now I have lost face and the morale of the army is unstable. What do you think we should do? Baitan was almost crazy. He had just been promoted and was at his most loyal. But now, at the moment when he took action after achieving the pseudo-star level for the first time, he was hit in the head, almost the most in his life. The greatest shame. Lord, we did not investigate the strength of the giant mosquito clearly before. Please punish me for this. However, your action failed to win the opponent, and he will definitely not get any favors. Moreover, you, Lord, have just been promoted to a false star. The strength has not yet been digested, so you might as well stabilize your condition, and you will definitely be able to defeat him next time you fight him. The former Supreme Commander of the Orion Arm War, who was also a half-star peak creature, gave some helpless advice. In fact, he secretly cursed in his heart that this battle was started directly because the Lord wanted to show off his pseudo-star strength. If not, who could persuade Baitan, the strongest person in the Fihang force, to take action? It's better now, it's someone else's fault. But he had no way to speak directly, so he could only use kind words to persuade. Humph, what you said is not wrong. The master wants you to say the same to the army below. Just say that I have just been promoted and my internal injuries have not healed yet. I can only use 20% of my strength in this battle. In 2 months, I will be this giant mosquito kills. If I hear any strange rumors, all of you will lose your position. Do you understand? Rolling for genuine subscription. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1130. What Baitan cares about most is his own reputation. After all, he is the leader of the entire Fihang force. Fastest update. Of course, all the subordinates responded obediently. After all the subordinates retreated, Baitan's expression became more sinister and slightly flashed with murderous intent. What he is currently on is his most powerful warship as a lord, a huge warship with a length of 10 kilometers, like a small star. In general, it was the giant mosquito that caused me to make such a fool of myself. It made me lose my prestige. Wait for me. In 2 months, I will let you die without a burial place. After he finished speaking, he gave another order, and then he also crouched down, secretly regulating the energy in his body. The terrifying power of a pseudo-stellar powerhouse was almost endless and increasing all the time. The strongest men on both sides began to recuperate, but the fleet below did not stop. After this battle, the two sides began to slowly come into contact, and each small but thrilling battle began. First of all, the first battle. Originally, the Orion arm had no intention of fighting because they were completely at a disadvantage. However, the exploration team sent by the enemy was too aggressive. After several contacts, it destroyed an expat warship on the Orion arm side, and then this small-scale encounter began. Both sides have a deadly feud, especially the Orion arm, which has been bullied for too long. At this time, a huge number of warships were dispatched in one go, overwhelming the enemy by more than 3 times. This war was the first battle against Fei Hong's forces that was victorious without Jia Yan's direct participation. Because in this battle, an alien battleship command technology that was previously reported by Jia Yan's clone was used. In fact, there are too many similar combat skills from aliens. Jia Yan just picked and taught the command skills that are best for dealing with the Fihang battleship. As a result, the results of this battle were seen. With 3 times the number of enemy ships, even if the losses were greater than the enemy, they still won. This victory was a hugely popular battle. The invincibility of the Fihang forces' warships had already penetrated the hearts of the Orion arms before, but now the scene has abruptly changed the concepts of the creatures in the Orion arms. It turns out that the enemy can also be defeated by ordinary fleets. It turns out that with his burst of strength, he can also cause damage to the enemy. At this time, almost all the ships in the Orion arm have increased their fighting spirit. In fact, it is not that they are really afraid of fighting, but the previous war has shown that no matter how they fight, they will always be the enemy. It's just a ship target. Although everyone is not afraid of death for their homeland, no one is willing to die without meaning at all. This battle shows that the fleet within the Orion arm can also win, so what do they have to fear? Only one word. War. The entire Orion arm fleet has almost no clear commander, but the fleets that came to support each civilization spontaneously summarized their war experience and exchanged combat experience. It's not that there is no gap between them, but that the enemy they face is too powerful, so powerful that all civilizations cannot defeat it unless they unite. As a result of this exchange, the major civilized fleets became more and more experienced. Even in a small-scale battle, a group of 3,000 Orion armed ships annihilated an enemy fleet of 200 ships at the cost of 500 warships. The small fleet of battleships almost chocked the entire war zone. Although the cost was extremely high, the major civilizations around them heard the news and sent fleets continuously. In the Orion Arm, the warships were not fighting less and less, but more and more. In this confrontation between the Orion Arm and the Feihang forces, all civilizations in the entire recovered war zone sent fleets. Even a small civilization that had just been recovered had less than 1 million living creatures left in the civilization. Only 20 warships were dispatched, which moved all civilizations extremely. The civilization of the Earth also sent a fleet of ships, and one of the top commanders of this extremely advanced fleet of more than 300 ships was actually the new generation Princess Jiaqi, who had recently emerged from the Jiao family. If it weren't for Princess Jiaqai's current junior qualifications, there must be a voice among the top leaders of the Earth civilization, that is, let her lead the army alone. You must know that Princess Jiaqi's tactics of overcoming Wei are obtained from the true inheritance of Lord Jiayan, and they are already a little bit popular. The fleet she leads is also the most powerful army on Earth, and among this fleet, Jiaqi, although he is known as one of the top commanders, everyone knows that others are here to take advantage of their military exploits. The real number one commander is none other than Jiaqi. Colonel Jiaqi, a team battle broke out ahead. We can see through the signal recognition that one side is our friendly forces in the Orion Arm, and the other side is the Feihang Force fleet. Report to me the battle situation in the command ship. Jiaqi was wearing a heroic female captain's uniform and a close-fitting uniform, which made her already worldly temperament more obvious, and she was one step ahead of everyone, reaching the starry sky after becoming the most powerful person on Earth. Her strong demeanor was also revealed, and her youthful beauty added a hint of a strong woman who is not angry and confident. Yes, Colonel, ignoring the general whose rank was one level higher than Jiaqai's, the intelligence officer reported, the enemy is a conventional battle group composed of 100 warships, and ours is a battle group of 500 ships composed of 3 civilizations, but the battle loss ratio and number of both sides are completely reversed. The intelligence agent did not express his thoughts. In fact, he wanted to intervene. Since they are at a disadvantage, does it not count as taking advantage of them if we join in the fight? Jiaqi's eyes lit up. Pass my order to raise the combat readiness level to level 1. 300 warships will gather together to prepare for the battle. Accompanied by Jiaqi's soft and crisp female voice, 300 Earth warships will quickly and skillfully gather in one place. Seeing that Jiaqi was eager to participate in the first initial command battle so quickly, the general sitting on the side moved his mouth, but in the end he didn't say anything. The general who became the commander of the Earth fleet just after it was born knew that it was really not good to ask for a battle, but he thought that he had never won many battles. On the other hand, the opponent was a member of the Jiao family, and he also had mastery of weapons. Guo Wei's tactics, and in the previous defense battle at the edge of the solar system, he used one person to defeat hundreds of enemy war weapons. He, a general with no military exploits and only relying on his seniority to get to his current position, almost didn't have the confidence to speak. Jiaqi looked at the general, and then a beautiful smile appeared on her lips. She is already in her 20s, and it is time for her to emerge and take over the mantle of the person in charge of the Jiao family. Even though she knew that her family would not collapse so easily, but her uncle slowly came to the rear, and the giant Mosquito Sr. did not seem to directly say anything about protecting the Jiao family, then she, the new generation, had to stand up and maintain the glory of the Jiao family. In fact, what she didn't know was that behind their fleet, an ultra-small space capsule was following from a distance, and Jia Yan's clone, who had said he would not fight again, was following behind. This little girl, you can't wait to participate in the first command battle. Jia Yan's clone looked at the 300 battleships starting to gather in front of him, shook his head slightly and smiled bitterly. Jiaqi is still belligerent. But what about bellicosity? If she fights more wars in the future, her temper will eventually stabilize. At least the opponent she chose this time was right. The look of anticipation in Jia Yan's eyes became even more obvious. Not long after, the 300 battleships gathered together. With a wave of Jia Kai's hand, the 300 battleships disappeared into space in an instant. After being demonstrated in the hands of Jia Yan's clone, the Pinguo Wei tactic was once again reappeared in the hands of a newcomer from the Jia family. A moment later, when the war broke out and the Orion arm fleet was almost overwhelmed, a 300-ship warship suddenly entered the center of the battle between the two sides. As soon as they appeared, there was a direct salvo of main artillery fire. By mental calculation or accidental calculation, the 300 warships with their main guns fully charged destroyed more than 20 enemy warships almost instantly. Asshole, what did I teach you in the previous training? I told you to aim at their muzzle, and I asked you to read the Earth Defense War videos every day. Do you just turn a deaf ear to it? Aim carefully. Originally, 300 destroying 20 Fihang fleet battleships was already an excellent result, but Jia Qi was actually not satisfied and roared in the command ship. Her delicate girlish voice will make people who hear it for the first time feel less majestic even if she is roaring. However, after hearing this roar, the expressions of the earthly soldiers in the 300 battleships changed. The eldest princess of the Jia family. In their opinion, this is the great witch of the Jia family. During the previous years of training, they had fully realized how terrifying this girl who looked like a cute princess could be when she got angry. So at this time, most of the fleet soldiers who were also participating in the battle for the first time restrained their various emotions before the battle and quickly carried out the operation properly. Of course, most of these operations are completed under the command of Jia Kai's starry sky-level brainwave power. Counterattack rays of light lit up in the sky. Although the Earth fleet was caught off guard at the first moment, the enemy was the elite Fihang fleet after all. After being stunned for a moment, they immediately began to counterattack. However, when they counterattacked, Jia Qi, who had just roared, her brainwave power moved. At the same moment, the operators in the entire fleet felt the command of her brainwave power and operated at the same time. 300 battleships disappeared into the visible universe in an instant. Okay, Jia Yan's clone, who was observing from behind, his eyes lit up at this moment, and he couldn't help but nodded slightly in admiration. This kind of reaction and mentality in the face of battle is very good. Even Jia Yan felt that Jia Qi's avoidance was very quick and reasonable. During the battle, hundreds of enemy and friendly warships were stunned. 300 warships suddenly appeared, fired a salvo, caused heavy losses to the Fihang force fleet, and then disappeared again? How can this be? 300 battleships are disappearing and disappearing in space. Have they seen a ghost? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1131. Regardless of whether they were friends or foes, they all looked at each other in shock, unable to believe what they were seeing. But before they could think about it, on the other side of the Fihang force warship, the 300 enemy warships appeared again. The same salvo destroyed dozens of the enemy's few warships. I know. Looking at their logo, they actually belong to the Earth fleet. This is the Earth fleet's overmatch tactic. Could it be that Lord Jia Yan is here? You must be ignorant. Mr. Jia Yan has said before that after returning to the Earth this time, he will basically wash his hands and never go to war again. The current Earth fleet should be a descendant of his family. Call. It must be Princess Jia Kai. She can't even remember her name, and she's still bragging. The basic battle mode between battleships was to shoot each other, but now there is a battle group that can hide in subspace, and it can also coordinate large-scale actions, as if they are one. This can almost rewrite the interstellar rules. Tactics. Pinguo Wei's tactics, under Jia Kai's operation, although a little green, also possess the characteristics of elusiveness. In such a battle situation, With the help of artillery fire from one side of the battle group, the enemy fleet, which was only the leader of 100 battleships, was actually fighting less and less. Then when the Earth fleet suddenly appeared and fired a salvo, finally after 10 ships also exploded and died. This 100-ship fleet was completely destroyed. This fleet of only 300 warships on Earth actually caused the complete destruction of the enemy fleet during its first appearance. This news spread throughout the entire battle formation in an instant, and almost all civilized fleets fell silent. The public has always believed that the strength of the people on Earth is dependent on the help of Jiayan and giant Mosquito. No one originally thought that the fighting power of the people on Earth would be so terrifying, but this battle is different. A battleship with 300 ships. The Earth fleet formed is actually capable of destroying an enemy fleet of hundreds of ships. This has to be shocking. The people of the Earth have already come to this point. Of course, the 500 battleships of other civilizations around also help, but anyone with a discerning eye can see that even if the Earthlings' battleships are called to fight the enemy, the result will not change much. It is nothing more than the energy consumed by the artillery fire of the Earth fleet. Just a little more. However, the commander of the Earth fleet is Lord Jiayans Jr. Her strength is not enough to measure the overall strength of the people on Earth. In short, the Earth civilization is our ally, so there is nothing to worry about. Fortunately, the Earth civilization has always been an ally of the counter-attacking civilization army. Especially some civilizations were basically saved by the Earth's senior Mosquito ancestor. Whatever the Earth wants from them, it has been able to get it long ago, and it will not wait until now, so they don't have much fear about the Earth's strength. But with the strong support of these 300 Earth civilizations, a strange balance appeared on the entire front. Although 300 battleships are not many, the Earth's fleet, which can match Wei's tactics, may appear on any battlefield at any time and at any time. This powerful support ability makes Fiheng's army almost, it was miserable. Of course, the overall disadvantage will not change much because of the 300 battleships. It will just force the original disadvantage into a balance. The performance of this Earth fleet is too eye-catching, and its reputation has become extremely bad for a while. Time passed slowly in the confrontation. Behind the fighting armies of both sides, there is a top powerhouse each, who is preparing to attack. One day, whoever breaks through the barrier first will have the advantage. Slowly, the reputation of the Earth fleet grew, and the name of the new generation of the Jia family of the Earth civilization, Jiachi, finally followed her identity as Jiayan, the niece, and entered the eyes of countless Orion arm creatures. As a rookie, even though she has strong commanding abilities, until now, her most attractive thing is her status as a member of the Jia family. Anyway, she became famous. Uncle, how come you have time to come to the front line recently? Are you interested in taking action? In the rear area where the temporary truce was held, 300 Earth warships were replenishing temporary combat readiness resources. Jia Yan's clone, who had been following the Earth fleet, also found an opportunity to come to Jiaqi's command ship, talk to Jiaqi, and give her pointers on the deeper points of Wei's tactics. Hearing Jiaqi's words, Jia Yan shook his head slightly. I came here just to check on you. As for taking action, I still can't. Naturally, Jia Yan's clone will not take action. As long as the real body is in Orion's arm, there is no need. In other words, Jia Yan cannot control the two bodies to fight together at the same time. Otherwise, it will only cause bad effects on each other. It is better to concentrate on control. A body. Before, he did not come to Jiakai's battleship. On the one hand, it was because he allowed Jiakai to fight on his own, and on the other hand, he was focused entirely on devouring his true body. Now 2 months have passed since the swallowing. Jia Yan is very happy with the progress. If nothing unexpected happens, it will only take a few days for the real body to be able to increase its strength and come out. At that time, he himself did not know how powerful the real body would be. Anyway, it just so happened that I didn't need to pay too much attention to my real body at this time, so I came over to meet Jia. Uncle, has Chi performed well recently? Not even a single one of the 300 warships was lost. It must be even more powerful than your battle back then. Haha. Jia hugged Jia Yan's arm coquettishly, her eyes curled. Little moon. Awesome, awesome, much better than I was back then. Okay. Jia Yan pinched her little nose with a wry smile, making Jia groan in pain. You are such a big man, but you still act like a child. No one else can believe that you can command a battleship. Jia Yan began to scold her. Isn't that what people do outside? Uncle, it won't hurt if you praise them just once. Jia clung to Jia Yan and refused to let go. The girl in her 20s was still the same as when she was a child. While Jia Yan smiled bitterly, he was also helpless to this little girl. With a straight face, he explained the next battle method based on Pinguo Wei's tactics. In fact, what Jia said was right. When he commanded the Earth fleet and fought against 1,000 warships of the Fihang forces, the casualty rate was higher than when Jia commanded the 300 warships. But that was a special situation, and the Earth fleet had only trained for a short month or two. Among the battleships currently commanded by Jia, not only had the training time been longer, but many of them were veterans who had experienced that battle. Under such circumstances, they would still. If her performance is worse, Jia Yan won't think she has commanding ability. Fortunately, Jia performance was pretty good, especially after a period of time. Jia Yan faintly discovered that his niece actually found a hint of subspace insights from the feeling of jumping into subspace. Could it be that my niece actually has space talent? This discovery shocked Jia Yan several times, and in the past few days, he came here deliberately to see if Jia had space talent. If so, he would definitely find a way to make her master subspace warfare. Jia Yan, as a master of subspace myself, I understand very well how unnatural a being with such a talent is. And just when Jia Yan wanted to lead out this problem, a terrifying shockwave swept across the Earth 10,000 kilometers away from the Earth fleet. This area of 10,000 kilometers in radius is home to the battle groups of all major civilization coalitions in the Orion Arm, with a total of tens of thousands of warships. But at this moment, under the huge auras sweeping across, dozens of edge battleships thousands of kilometers away suddenly lost their life aura completely, and some even seemed to be unable to withstand the aura and exploded directly. Not good. At this moment, Jia Yan's face changed drastically, and his human face turned pale almost instantly. This clone is just an ordinary venerable. After the opponent's momentum swept here, even his clone could hardly bear it. His strength was suppressed and he felt that he could not breathe. And Jia on the side was even more unbearable. Even though she was more than 10,000 kilometers away, the huge and incomparable aura hit here, making her mouth and nose feel hot and blood flowed out. This is... She was almost shaking in fear. This is the first time that Jia has faced such a powerful person in so long since she was born. At the same time, the entire coalition formation was also in chaos. With just a breath impact from the other side, countless people spurted out blood. The group of warships that were close even completely lost their combat effectiveness. Either all of them died, or they were temporarily disabled. Ability to move. I didn't expect that guy to improve faster than me. Jia Yan's clone's eyes flashed with light. He understood who the other party was, because in the entire Orion Arm, apart from that guy, there was simply no way there could be another being with such a terrifying aura. Even if his true form comes out of seclusion, it is impossible to reach such a level. It is no longer an aura that ordinary strong people can reveal, and even far exceeds half-star level. For ordinary living beings, this is definitely a life-level crush. Uncle, what is this? Jia face turned pale. She had joined the battle late before, so she had never seen the opponent's top master. At this time, she felt such a terrifying aura for the first time, and instantly felt the will of death. My mentality almost collapsed. Seeing his niece so frightened, Jia Yan comforted her slightly. This is the most powerful enemy, named Baitan. So this is Baitan. Jia Kai smiled bitterly. She originally thought that the so-called strong man should not be too strong to fight against. She thought that her own tactics of surpassing Wei, even if she could not kill the strong man, it can also fight against the strong to a certain extent. But now it seems that, let alone confrontation, if the other party has murderous intentions and an aura impact, their 300 warships will not be able to avoid it no matter how hard they hide. Giant Mosquito, get out of here. At this moment, the voice of the owner of the terrifying aura boomed across the starry sky, like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. This was no longer the aura of an ordinary strong man, it was like the god who controlled the world. To him, tens of thousands of battleships were no different than toys. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1132. There are only tens of thousands of warships, and of course there is no threat in Baitan's view. Fastest update. If he hadn't been worried about the sudden appearance of the giant mosquito, he could have completely destroyed this group of warriors with a flip of his hands. Even the Earth fleet that had been in the limelight previously, no matter what tactics it used to match Wei, could not even enter subspace under the control power of the star level. Even if it did, it would be suppressed directly. Under the explosion of breath, the huge front in front of them absolutely collapsed. Among the entire enemy battle group, the only one he feared was the giant mosquito with whom he had previously fought to a draw. It was also the first opponent he had suffered a huge loss of face after he was promoted to the pseudo-stellar level. Giant mosquito, stop hiding, or I will kill these ants one by one until you appear. Baitan's roar resounded across tens of thousands of kilometers. His brainwave power was activated, but he did not feel the presence of the giant mosquito. At this moment, he was even worried that the giant mosquito had escaped. In his opinion, the giant mosquito must of course escape. He was able to fight to a draw with him before, but a few months later, he will break through the last huge obstacle after his promotion, and that is the power of control. The power of control possessed by a semi-star level expert is just a trick to simulate a star level. In fact, that kind of control is completely different from a real star level. But the pseudo-star level is different. The control power that the pseudo-star level can have is only 2 or 3 times different from that of the real star level. In other words, they can have 1/2 or 1/3 of the control power of ordinary stars. This is definitely scary enough. With this kind of power, in the eyes of ordinary creatures, they are no different from gods. Ordinary half-stars, or even genius-level half-stars, can seal or even kill directly with just a raise of their hands. This giant mosquito had the same strength a few months ago. After a few months, even if it improves, it is impossible to improve much. Seeing him now, he must run away. Very good, if you run away, I will kill this defensive fleet first, and then push the front line all the way to the civilization on Earth you care about, and see if you can get out. Baitan looked at the group of battleships in front of him with a sinister look in his eyes, snorted coldly, and was about to take action. His expression suddenly changed slightly. There were countless battleships around, and each one also had a strange look on their face. Because in their battleship detection system, behind their coalition fleet and the Earth fleet, a force that was considered powerful suddenly surged in momentum. Although it was still like an ant in front of the pseudo-stellar enemy, it was still stronger than the giants. As most people imagined, panic broke out. Then the owner of this power slowly flew out in the direction of the Earth fleet. It was only 10,000 kilometers, and it didn't take long for him to arrive in front of Baitan. It's Master Jia Yan. Here, hasn't Master Jia Yan already washed his hands in a golden basin, and he still appears in the Earth fleet? Countless biological soldiers of all races immediately recognized the strong man who flew out. He was actually the strongest man in the Orion Arm, who was invincible in the Orion Arm before the giant Mosquito appeared, Jia Yan. Jia Yan had to show up, because if he didn't show up, the fleet would be doomed. You know, there are tens of thousands of battleships, and the number of creatures in them is almost billions. Death would have a huge impact. Moreover, there is the Earth fleet and even his niece Jia Qi here. How could he allow the other party to attack? Baitan looked at the tiny creature flying slowly in front of him. Even the giant Mosquito's true form was considered a small creature in his eyes, and the Earthling clone that flew in, which was only about 1.7 meters tall, was almost like a small bug, so he had to use a magnifying glass to see it. But in the next moment, something strange came into his eyes. You actually have a very similar aura to that giant mosquito. Who are you from the giant mosquito? Baitan asked. In his opinion, this tiny creature also has a starry sky level. Although in his opinion, it can be killed with half a breath, it is also an extremely rare strong person in the Orion Arm. Especially on this little creature, there was a unique aura of giant mosquitoes. Others would not feel it so clearly, but he was different. As a strong man who had fought fiercely with giant mosquitoes for many rounds, he could easily analyze it. Master Baitan, my name is Jia Yan, giant mosquito, and I am my master. Jia Yan said. He is your master? I see. No wonder your auras are very similar. A cold light flashed in Baitan's eyes. He didn't care about the relationship between this tiny creature and the giant mosquito. At this time, he said with great ferocity, let your master come out. I want to fight him again to wash away the insult he did to me when my strength was weakened. When Jia Yan heard this, he was stunned. Did I insult you while you were weak? If you hadn't rushed over, I would have fought you as a pseudo-star. It turns out that this guy's self-esteem is so strong that he has an excuse for defeat. However, it was his clone who appeared in front of the opponent at this time. Jia Yan just turned these thoughts around in his mind and decided to stabilize the opponent at the moment. I'm sorry, my master is not far away now and is about to arrive. Senior, if you take advantage of this situation to attack our fleet, it seems a bit unethical for a strong man. So, you will wait for my master for a while. He will come over and fight with you right away. Jia Yan's words made Baitan Han shine even more. Junior, why should I listen to you? Besides, you and I are at war, so why do you have to wait for your master? I think it's better if I kill you fish first. After saying this, his brainwave power suddenly vibrated and swept directly towards the Jia Yan clone in front of him. As a leader of power, it is impossible for him to abide by any law of the strong, and there is no such law of the strong in the universe. Jia Yan's clone let out a long sigh. He had previously thought that such a creature with such a strong self-esteem would definitely care about a trace of the strong man's behavioral laws, but he did not expect that he would actually take action directly. However, although this clone will definitely not be the opponent's opponent, Baitan still seems to be worried about the sneak attacks of the giant mosquitoes that may appear at any time around him, so the power of this attack is at most the normal level. With 1/10 of the strength, his clone is much more powerful than the last one, but it is not certain to die. After so many thoughts passed through his mind, Jia Yan's brain waves started to move. Then he stepped back, and the subspace hole opened. At the same time, a small black hole appeared next to Nabatan. With a bang, the black hole exploded. As for Jia Yan's clone, after being slightly swept away by the opponent's brainwave power, he let out a slight groan, but after spitting out a mouthful of blood, he retreated into the subspace. Hey, He actually has space tactics. He is indeed a master and disciple. It would be too naive to use such a small black hole to deal with me. There was a strange light in Baitan's eyes, and the black hole exploding beside him attracted his great attention, so he was not distracted by Jia Yan's clone that retreated into the subspace. The black hole that exploded beside him was something that Jia Yan had found in the land he had recovered before, leaving behind all the enemies that would have been wiped out before the explosion. This time, when the Avatar chased Jia Qi to the war zone, he searched for it along the way. All collected. In fact, Baitan said that this was a small black hole, but it was almost the same as the one that exploded by Jia Yan in the Genius battlefield. However, in the face of pseudo-stellar levels, it could still only be called a small artificial black hole. And sure enough, this kind of small black hole was almost worthless in front of Baitan. After a strange light flashed in his eyes, he grasped it with his palm, and the whole starry sky seemed to suddenly have a will that did not belong to this universe. This will is almost like the will of a god. The power of the small black hole in the explosion was completely solidified under this grasp. Although it can be seen that Baitan almost used his ultimate strength and his palms were trembling slightly, it did not feel too strenuous. Seeing this scene, Jia Yan's clone, who was far away in the subspace, froze slightly. He understood that Baitan, who was not even afraid of the black hole explosion, was much more powerful than he was 2 months ago. The control power is almost comparable to that of a star, so terrifying. After completely suppressing the small black hole with the power of control, Baitan also took a slight breath and the entire starry sky seemed to be stripped away by the universe, with no time, no weight, and even the energy is gone. Of course, this time could not last forever. Baitan suddenly threw the space he controlled into the distance. Then, 100,000 kilometers away, space suddenly opened, and the explosion suddenly appeared belatedly. 100,000 kilometers was considered a short distance, and suddenly a large number of nearby warships began to stagger. I want to escape, Baitan finally realized what he was doing. He moved towards the direction of the subspace where Jia Yan's clone had already flown out of the direction of the battleship. His brainwave power exploded, his whole body turned into brilliance, and he chased after him. The pseudo-stellar speed reached an almost unimaginable level, and Baitan's movement caused the curvature of space. It was as if he entered subspace in a strange pattern, chasing Jia Yan's clone extremely quickly. Jia Yan, who escaped in subspace, almost smiled bitterly. He knew before that after reaching the stellar level, the subspace talent is not such a weird talent, because at the stellar level, any strong person can have a way to quickly advance, and they will also have the ability to attack the subspace. But seeing with my own eyes that a pseudo-star like Baitan could easily do it, I could only smile bitterly. But I managed to lure him away. I sent a signal to Kikai to let the army retreat quickly. I think the entire army of the other party will attack later. Without the threat of my true body, this position cannot be defended. Jia Yan's clone was not really so whimsical that he thought he could fight Baitan with his clone, but he wanted to distract him so that the coalition fleet could escape. It's not that Baitan didn't know his plan, but in his opinion, tens of thousands of warships were nothing more than tens of thousands of warships. To him, killing him was just like playing for fun. The top priority was to kill the giant Mosquito disciple in front of him who also had the talent of subspace. Kill. You can't escape. Reborn as an interstellar giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1133. Baitan's speed is almost 5 times faster than Jia Yan's clone. It takes less than a few minutes to catch up to its location in the subspace, and it will be blasted out with one blow. But at this moment, Jia Yan's clone had the same brainwave power. Fastest update. Another small black hole suddenly appeared next to the opponent, and then exploded instantly without stopping for much. How can there be such terrible spatial accuracy? Just a venerable person, Baitan was shocked. Although he knew that Jia Yan might have several man-made black holes that they had discarded in previous battles, he simply didn't think that the other party could carry them with him during this kind of pursuit, let alone trigger them to appear and detonate them so accurately. He had the illusion that the ants he was dealing with were chasing the giant mosquito in terms of space talent. Baitan's illusion was actually quite accurate, but he never thought that this was actually a clone of the giant mosquito. The commanders of the Orion Arm battleship on one side received Jia Yan's notice and quickly withdrew towards the distance. They were also extremely shocked. This, Master Jia Yan suddenly appeared, and even the terrifying Baitan was able to temporarily delay him. It's terrible. Master Jia Yan's strength, which we thought was just like that before, is actually so powerful. Escape quickly. Master Jia Yan is still a bit weaker than his opponent. He tried his best to help us escape. Let's not waste his good intentions. As for the Earth fleet, Jia Qi looked at the light that burst out from time to time hundreds of thousands of kilometers away in space. She knew that her uncle was fighting a life and death battle over there, and she bit her silver teeth hard. She hated that she was not strong enough, otherwise she would have been able to help her uncle. My uncle wouldn't have come out originally. He came to this battlefield because he wanted to look after me. But when he met such an opponent, he had to take action. Jia Qi's eyes were watery and she was about to cry. Let's go, Princess Jia Kai. The commander on one side looked at Jia Kai and shook his head helplessly. Jia Kai has grown up a lot. If she were a teenage girl a few years ago, she might have ordered the fleet to rush forward. But now, after a lot of pain, she started the strategy of overcoming Wei, and the fleet quickly retreated. Sure enough, just as the army was retreating in pieces, Fi Heng's army came in pursuit. The fallen fleet fought with them in panic, and bursts of firefights continued to break out in the starry sky hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Slowly getting further and further away from the fighting range, Jia Qi's feeling of worry has not receded for a long time. Uncle is always safe and sound, and Senior Giant Mosquito, who is my uncle's master, will definitely come forward to save my uncle. Don't worry, he will be fine. Jia Kai secretly encouraged herself to give herself confidence. What she didn't know was that even if this uncle died, another uncle would come back not long after. After all, this was just Jia Yan's clone. Above the sky, two bodies, one large and one small, were constantly intertwined in the starry sky. Jia Yan barely dodged an attack, but a wound appeared on his body from his chest to his waist. Jia Yan, you can't escape. Baitan finally showed some real strength with some dignity at this time. I had always thought that the tiny earthling creature in front of me could not survive his attack, but after such a long chase and escape, Jia Yan was able to survive his pursuit, which forced him to take it seriously. This master and disciple, one level after another, one venerable, are actually able to fight across levels. Although the venerable in front of me has always relied on black holes, his grasp of the timing of the battle and his ability to escape are all astonishing. People. No, if we don't kill these two guys, they will be a big problem in the future. He made a decision, he must kill Jia Yan in front of him, as well as the giant mosquito that didn't know when it appeared. Otherwise, this kind of genius creature will definitely be in big trouble when it grows up. Of course Baitan was confident in his own strength. Not to mention the mere venerable in front of him, even the giant mosquito that didn't know when it appeared would definitely be able to kill him easily. Give me the town. Just when Jia Yan's clone was almost at the end of the road, Baitan saw the opportunity and took control of his power to suppress it. The entire sky seemed to be frozen. Jia Yan could hardly move. My little venerable, you can run, now you run again. Baitan came to Jia Yan, and then looked at Jia Yan with a serious look. He thought that Jia Yan would admit his mistake and even beg for mercy. Although it was impossible for him to spare the other person, he liked to see that look of despair and pain. Having just achieved pseudo-stellar level, he should have been in the limelight, but he never thought that when he came to the Orion arm, he wanted to show off his strength to a group of subordinates who were fighting hard, but he encountered Waterloo one after another. A dignified pseudo-star level, fought with a sub-level giant Mosquito, but ended up with him escaping in despair. After that time, his subordinates looked at him a little strangely. Then he worked hard to improve his strength and get the true strength after promotion. However, he just came out of seclusion and wanted to avenge the giant Mosquito, but he didn't want to meet his apprentice. It took him a lot of effort to catch a mere venerable person. He could already imagine that the expressions of his subordinates who were monitoring the scene from a distance must have been even weirder. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. He felt that he was a pseudo-star level, and he was supposed to kill everyone. There was no one enemy at all. After all, even in the biochemical star field, the pseudo-star level could be considered standing, except for a few constants. Apart from the star-level experts, there is no other powerhouse that can pose a threat to them. You actually gave me such an expression, aren't you afraid of death? Baitan was almost furious when he saw that Jia Yan was not what he thought, showing pain and pleading. Such a small creature should tremble under its own strength and keep begging Yuan Liang. Ah! Jia Yan, under the control of his power, smiled slightly. Of course I'm not afraid of death. I'm proud enough to be able to survive under the hands of a pseudo-star for so long. Why should I be afraid of death? Jia Yan said calmly. Of course, why is his clone afraid of dying? If it were his real body, maybe Jia Yan was really scared, but if the clone dies, he will die. At worst, he can just ask Taya Kingdom to make another one. Me, I just got promoted and am not familiar with the new energy. If not, you would have died long ago. Baitan almost jumped to his feet. When Jia Yan heard this, there was a strange look in his eyes. In fact, from previous contacts, he could already tell that this pseudo-stellar monster seemed to have a sense of vanity. Now that it took him a long time to catch his clone, it was even more obvious. This is a character weakness. I will make good use of it in the future battles. In fact, the most important thing for Jia Yan's clone to evade capture was the self-destruction of the black hole. Otherwise, even he would not have been able to escape for so long under the hands of a pseudo-stellar powerhouse. The gap between the venerable and the pseudo-star level is like a chasm, which cannot be bridged by combat skills and experience. Well, you seem to have a good reputation in the Orion arm. Now that I have caught you, I will publicly execute you and kill you in front of countless Orion arm people to neutralize their desire to fight. Baitan thought of the best way to make use of Jia Yan. Hearing this, the clone's eyes flashed with something strange. Anyway, if he could survive, his clone wouldn't want to die. After all, every time it was produced, the Taya Kingdom made a huge effort, and Jia Yan couldn't afford to repay the favor. In particular, he had a vague suspicion that the remaining tissue of his real body left in Taya country could not be produced again, so this clone should be cherished even more. So it would be nice to take some time. As for Baitan's so-called public execution, it is possible that it can cause the Orion arm to lose its fighting spirit. However, until now, this war has been a war between Jia Yan alone and Fei Hong's forces. The Orion arm is generally the resistance of the forces has almost no effect, so the loss of fighting spirit does not matter. My real body will be released from seclusion in the next few days. If I can delay it until then, there will still be a chance for everything. The Earth fleet is flying slowly in space. 3 days have passed since we left the center of the battle and found Shiyuan. Jia Kai has been paying attention to the battle in the rear, and there have been escaping civilized warships or small fleets passing by around her. After exchanging information, she learned about the war situation in the rear. Sure enough, when Fei Hong's army attacked with all its strength, the coalition fleet of tens of thousands was almost defeated. If the Earth fleet had not kept turning back before, using tactics to drag the enemy and hinder the enemy's army, the coalition fleet of tens of thousands might have been defeated. It is possible that they will all be wiped out. Even the Earth fleet suffered the loss of 3 battleships in this war where the enemy was strong and we were weak. That was the lives of thousands of Earthlings. Jiakai blamed herself for a long time. But what she was more concerned about was the news about her uncle. It is a pity that no matter which fleet has heard about Jia Yan for 3 days, it seems that his uncle disappeared after that battle. Could it be? No way. My uncle is so powerful, how could he? In Jiaqi's heart, her uncle has always been the most powerful man, but when she thought about the enemy's terrifying strength, a brainwave power came over, and tens of thousands of battleships almost lost their combat effectiveness. Her confidence in Jia Yan's strength turned into worry. Colonel Jiakai, here, the Feihang forces sent out a broadcast signal, said that Master Jia Yan will be publicly executed. When the intelligence officer told Jiaqi the shocking information they had just received, Jiaqi was shocked. Impossible, she screamed, almost fainting. Sure enough, not only Jiakai received the signal, but also the other fleeing warships, as well as countless civilizations and exile ships in the entire Orion Arm. The man who was the most powerful man in the Orion Arm and saved the Orion Arm several times was caught by the enemy and publicly executed. Everyone went crazy.